on? You need the light on? Or we have enough light?
Watch in there. Watch the difference.
Oh, boom. Okay, yeah, that's a big difference.
And then we will...
Huh. What does that do?
Recording.
Oh, testing and recording. All right, can you hear me? I heard that.
I can hear you.
You can? Can you hear me? Do I need to get closer?
Maybe a little bit. You're talking about bums smoking cigarettes?
Yeah. The only time a cigarette smells really bad is when you put it halfway through and keep it in your pocket. Otherwise, cigars and pipe tobacco, it's not too bad.
No, I'd get some cigars in here. It'd be nice.
Well, if you could, like, actually for the sound and everything, you close it off.
Maybe the smoke would keep the
Maybe
outer
the smoke
sound
would
down.
keep the wind. Well, no. I mean, like you, you have it all sealed off or whatever, and you open the window and it stays in here instead of creeping out into the family room and everything.
Cigar smoke isn't so bad being in the house. Grandpa's cigar smoke wasn't so bad.
No.
But
I'd say on poker night in college, the one time we'd smoke in the house was like cigars. We'd be playing poker, That was acceptable.
I was lame in college. I was not playing poker or smoking
Oh,
cigars.
no. I was the exact opposite. I was probably doing too much.
Well, you did a little bit more when you got to living with Dad and getting involved with the Second Amendment stuff.
Yeah. That got discouraging. I know we were talking about it earlier. I didn't get to say it. I was going to save it. Because I was the secretary of the California Rifle and Pistol Association in our chapter up north in Colusa, California. Northern state of Jefferson, basically. But the main guy, our like representative to it, I don't know if I should name names, but the guy, his name is Homer. I forget his last name. We called him like Homer Pyle. He was very like, well, write to your congressman, write to your senators. And it's like, well, if you know anything about California senators, they're not going to pay attention to that. Right. And instead of us, we were really trying to open up a gun range so people could actually get out there and practice and all that. And this guy was sitting there like, well, can't do that yet. We got to get more members. We got to get more donations. We got to get more and it just seemed way more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
kind of just putting it off.
Just putting it off. It seemed more like less action, more like of the political side of stuff. More like, okay, donations, give more money to the organization over actually doing stuff with the Second Amendment.
So it started out as just getting a gun range?
Well, that's what we were trying to do. The biggest thing was like, okay, if we want to protect our Second Amendment, we actually have to be using our Second Amendment, our rights, and that's practicing with firearms and firearm safety. And this guy just seemed very adamant about not doing that, but just getting like benefits and donation dinners and just members in. He seemed more focused on the like almost the activist part over the actual like principle of the matter. And that was, dude, we gotta start getting our our gun time in, our range time in. And he was more just, well, we got to get more members. We got to get more money. And I was like, well, people aren't going to join if it's just another organization instead of us like, hey, we're building a range. You want to join? Come shoot with us. Mm-hmm. More people, I think, would be interested in that than just let's go to a dinner and talk about the government screwing us over.
Right.
Oh, and I got a funny one. So at one point, he got mad at our president because he had missed a couple meetings and stuff, which I get, but... And I was kind of doing the outlines for the whole meetings. And I'm secretary. I'm not supposed to be doing that. But at one point he was like, well, like how many of you have like talked to your state senator and this and that? Like, I'm really disappointing everybody here for not doing that. And I said, you know what? Like, I didn't come here I didn't join this organization to just, to bitch and moan. And I think I cussed a little bit more. I dropped an F-bomb or two, but I was like, I'm not here to find out. Like, I pulled out my phone. I said, I could use this. I can find out every day how the government's taking advantage of me. I don't need to come to these meetings to just gripe and moan about it. Like, I came here to do something. And that's to start the gun range, to get more active, not just to play this weird organization,
Well,
non-organization party game, you know?
but you guys were also making it more of a sanctuary area.
Well, we're
for the
trying
Second
to,
Amendment,
yeah.
right?
That's what Dad was doing. He got involved with that, and he would send that stuff to Homer. He'd send that stuff to our CRPA, CRPA representative, and the guy would just kind of brush it off. He wasn't really interested in that part, and it was like, well, what are we really doing here? And
Right.
it just like, that's when I moved to Red Bluff. I ended up leaving. I didn't join the Red Bluff chapter just because I was like, okay, this is all they're gonna do is just talk and moan and not do anything and not even try and get out and get some range time. His biggest thing is like, we don't have to go and kick down doors, but like at least get some range time and at least do something with this. They weren't doing it.
But the point of it was just to get, just like gun safety stuff, teaching people about it.
That was our kind of first step.
Awareness type of thing.
That was our first step. Our first step was just getting out there. And then we were hoping that would drag more people in because there's no gun range in Colusa.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere to really shoot unless you private property.
But you were trying to handle things locally.
Yeah.
Just
It was
just providing some type of service locally to
in
the community.
Colusa. And then Dad was thinking of the next step with the sanctuary state or sanctuary county. And I mean, we couldn't.
Sanctuary county for the Second Amendment.
For the Second Amendment. And we couldn't, not the other one. We couldn't even get, the range down, let alone that, getting to that part. That was the next step.
But that's what you wanted to start with, was just a
we
range.
wanted to start with that and then get
You can't
people.
have sanctuary. I mean, it would be
You can't really
having a sanctuary county for the Second Amendment. It would be nice for people to know and be safe with weapons, guns, know about them.
People involved.
So you're trying to set up a range first.
Yeah, teaching
go
kids
from
and
there.
adults and look, we're not just irresponsible. Like, go carry a gun.
Right.
We were trying to at least start with something we thought was simple,
Mm-hmm.
and that was okay. Well, let's get a
that
place
sounds
to
pretty
shoot, get a
simple.
place to meet up.
Did you have the place?
No,
What was this Homer guy for? What was he needed for?
Because we were part of an organization or chapter of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. It was for a lot of it was insurance and legality issues. So if something went wrong at the range or anything, we would be covered. They provided that insurance.
Okay.
We were ready to send people down to, oh God, what was it called? Somewhere down Fullerton, I think, in Southern California, to get their range master certificate. Yeah, I was lined up to do that. I said I had all the time in the world. I was like, all right, I'm willing to go tomorrow or yesterday. There was another couple guys, but it was just, he's like, okay, well, I'll email them. I'll talk to them. And it was months later. It was like, so did you talk to him? What's going on? And, oh, well, I'll talk to him. It's just, it just seemed like the guy just wanted money for his organization over actually what the organization was supposed to be about.
Was that a deeper conversation from Dad?
I think, I don't know if we really talked about it in detail, but we did go over
Wasting time.
we were wasting time. He was very frustrated by the end of it. And I mean, he still went to the meetings and everything. And I mean, at one point, Dad was doing vice president work. He was doing secretary work because he ended up passing on the secretary stuff to me because I was like, okay, I'll do it. And he's like, okay, good. Here, you do that. I'm already doing stuff. And
But it got you involved.
yeah, he got me involved, and he wanted to get more in with the gun sanctuary stuff, and that's why he was like, okay, I'll head that committee because they have the committees within the group or whatever it is.
Yeah, he's working on stuff at the same time as trying to get the range stuff set up. I
Well,
think there's
he was less of the range stuff. He wanted to focus on the gun sanctuary stuff, and I focused on just trying to get the meetings, learning how organization meetings go. You have to second a motion and pass it and do all that jargon. I was helping with that, and then trying to at least get people, I was more getting the range open. And it was like, Dad, you're into this, you focus on that. I'm just trying to get people ready.
But that's how any good thing works. Someone's working on something while you're working on it at the same time.
Everyone's got their own piece.
You got roles. Yeah. And there might be a misconception with that. And a lot of people, when you talk about guns, it's almost like a rash, emotional decision to just go buy guns and not know anything about them. Yeah. But you guys were trying to set something up that it was more of an educational type of.
It was educational, but it was also just practicing our rights, and that's right. Anyone who's been around guns, you don't point at a loaded gun at anyone. You don't point a gun at anyone unless you're ready to use it.
Well, some don't know.
Some don't know. And a lot of it too is getting the youth, get that mentality in kids and stuff.
Yeah, this is your right.
This is your right.
Be safe with it.
Learn how to use it and start them, getting accustomed to it, because, some people see a gun who aren't used to it. In college, we had a bunch of mice. We had some mice running around, so I went and bought a little airsoft gun. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna sit on the couch, and if I see him running around, I'll pop, shoot at him. And one of my roommates at the time, he kind of freaked out over it. It was just a little airsoft gun. He's like, okay, well, it's just an airsoft gun, that's fine. But like, people aren't used to seeing them. They freak out because they don't really understand they're not used to, it's like a piece of, tractor equipment, or, even a kitchen,
it's
cutting
just
knife.
Like anything else you're not used to using.
Yeah.
You could throw public speaking in there.
You could throw driving in there. If you've never seen a car before, that's going to freak you out. But, we're so used to them that, we see a car going 70 miles an hour. It's whatever. Mm-hmm. But that, Mom used to say, that's like a loaded gun.
Right.
That can kill you quickly.
Yeah, if you're an idiot with it.
Yeah.
You can be abused. You can abuse anything.
Yeah.
And so being a part of something like that's a neat experience. I mean, it's something you'd never done before.
The organization.
Yeah.
At first it was really cool. I was very on board with it. When we first started, we met at the gun shop in a private room, and it was during the riots of 2020. And so what are we going to do? Should we, how do we prepare for this kind of stuff? And one of the guys and I, we were talking about a little more conspiracy theorist, kind of okay, what roads do we have to block off? Where's our water supply?
Right.
If they cut the power to us, where do we get our power? We were going full survivalist mode. And I remember one of the guys, he was like, well, I don't really, I got a family to think about. I can't really get that involved. I was like, well, you're going to get involved whether you like it or not. You might as well have I hate to say it, but
plan.
You might as well have a plan, and you might as well have some that's what I'm looking for, control over it or something. Instead of just letting people dictate what your family's going to do or how it's going to be, you might as well try and play an active role in protecting it.
Was it getting that bad in Colusa?
Not that bad, but in California, period.
Right.
Sacramento, Redding wasn't, there weren't a lot of riots there, but LA and San Francisco, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Portland's not too far from us.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a
Chico.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there were some protests in Colusa. There was about 50 people, I want to say, give or take. A whole bunch of kids, a lot of them from out of town, I think. They weren't rioting, but they were just...
Yeah, there was something
that
on.
Was more...
For a quiet...
For an actual...
For nothing happening.
For all their peaceful protest talks, that one was actually peaceful.
Yeah.
But apparently I missed the Red Bluff one, but they were talking about coming through, and a bunch of people from Chico and Redding, and a lot of guys were like, okay, well, we're going to be armed. You can protest, but don't go burning down our businesses.
Right.
Or we're going to have a problem. And they never showed up.
I didn't know.
So it didn't get bad, but at the time.
It was at least brought up.
It was brought up, and at the time it was, Portland, Seattle, LA, all these cities are catching on fire peacefully.
Right.
I love that one, peaceful protest. But it was definitely a concern.
Yeah, and is that why the gun club was going where it was going?
I think it was part of it.
Was it just?
It was part of it, and then with the masks, because there were plenty of businesses in Colusa, and for your listeners, Colusa is 14,000, small town, farm town, USA. No California, but still a small town. And
don't look at the camera.
Okay, all right, my bad.
No, I just.
I'm watching that movie last night.
Right.
The actors just stare into the camera and give their monologue.
We'll talk about the movie in a minute.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
Oh, we can. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
But where was I? There were still businesses that were, I worked at a restaurant bar, Chef Calouse, and he had to shut down because he didn't want to do the outside dining and make us wear masks. I mean, we still did the outside dining for a bit. We had that as an option. But he had some health people coming in, some Sacramento agents and stuff coming in. I think they only came in like once or twice, but they were threatening him, scaring him, and then other people were making you wear masks, and it was definitely like, all right, well, if the man's gonna tell us all this stuff, we better be ready in case they actually start coming for the guns.
Because in New York, that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
Well, did you see that about that?
Which one?
That small business. Well,
was that New York or Jersey?
It might have been Jersey.
Because Jersey, there was a lot of that going on with the gym guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I remember that.
That's what I was talking about.
His name. And then there was a lady, I think in Jersey or New York. She had a bar. She had to shut it down. So what she ended up doing was she opened it up like a speakeasy. And then she was like, well, if I'm going this far, she had like gambling and stuff going on. It's like, I'm going that far, I might as well. And she ended up getting popped, but.
Popped as in
caught. Yeah. Sorry.
No, but I didn't know if, even in that small town, things were going on.
Yeah.
Businesses were
businesses were shutting down. I lost, my job essentially. That's when after that, Owen told me about Carlos and Red Bluff. But there was still there's a few restaurants that were making you wear masks. I remember ordering a pizza from Round Table. It's like $30 worth of food, and I walk in, and they're like, you got a mask? No. So I walk up to the counter like, well, do you have a mask? I'm like, no. Oh, you need a mask. Okay, well, goodbye.
Yeah.
I never really want to put up much of a fight. It was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to come here again.
Right.
All right. You made your choice. That's fine. I'm making mine, and that's not supporting this.
What was it? Because I wasn't there, obviously. But what was it like half and half for the two?
Yeah, so AutoZone made you put on a mask, but Napa didn't, so I ended up going to Napa more. I've stopped going to AutoZone, I think, since then. I remember, so when I got my CCW, I walked in the police station, no one cared. I talked to the chief of police, wasn't wearing a mask, didn't ask. I didn't ask. So it was really weird. You'd have Subway telling you wear a mask, but the chief of police is like, oh,
right.
So and it was mixed.
Yeah, and when the cops are, I feel that when the cops are like, yeah, we don't. I feel there's something to that about law when the cops are not enforcing something.
Yeah,
that you're essentially told to do, a mandate or whatever. But I feel that when the cops are not enforcing, they enforce law, right? So when they're not enforcing something, you're kind of like, well, that's not a law then.
Laws
obviously.
Are only as useful as they are enforced or something like that. So yeah, it wasn't that enforced.
I just mean that just the idea that if the cops are not, if the police force, if law enforcement, enforcing the law is not happening, then maybe somebody would have stepped back and said, oh, this isn't a law. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's not a law to wear a mask. It's actually not a law. We went through this with a judge who came here and it was just Supreme Court rulings.
Yeah.
People get this misconception that just because the Supreme Court, for example, Roe v. Wade, they think it's a law, or they think that it is some sort of federal law that you have to be able to do something. And Congress did not get together about the masks. Congress did not get together about a vaccine, making it a law. So if law enforcement is not enforcing a law, it's probably not a law.
Well, they did that I don't know if you flew during 2020 a bit, right? Because I remember on the airplanes, they were saying it's like law, you have to wear a mask. Yes. And it was like, I was saying, well, what law?
Right.
That wasn't
That's
a
what
law.
I mean. Congress didn't get together to say.
They would enforce that, though. At least the airlines would.
Well, a business can say what they want to do. But that's why I'm saying a business saying it. A business can say what they want. You know, if they have the right to serve whoever they want, right? Yeah. So if they – but that's what bugged me was this is a – federal law says, I'm like, that's not a thing. It's not federal law. Congress did not get together and make a law saying you had to do this. No. So when they would announce it that way, that's frustrating. No. That I think that was more frustrating to anybody because, I mean, no matter – well, maybe not everybody, obviously. No. But to me, that was part of the frustration was you're purposely you're misstating this. This is not a law. Yeah. And so when people heard that, there were people that would hear that and then repeat it and then say, so
your uneducated or uninformed population is still stuck on the CNN, wear a mask, get your quadruple boost or whatever, because they don't actually take the time to actually look into anything or actually even just look around, you know, like look around and like, yeah, people died from COVID, but it wasn't anything near what the experts were saying.
Well, and that, I mean, that's such a deep conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole nother can of worms.
But I'm just, it doesn't bug me if you wanted to get the shot.
Yeah.
Doesn't bug me if you wanted to wear a mask. It doesn't even bug me if a business said, wear a mask. Yeah. The part that bugged me was when they would say, well, this is federal law. No, it's not. Yeah. It never was. And so that's why I go back to law enforcement. If it was a law, I think there would have been a bigger dilemma with the cops, law enforcement, pushing to enforce that law if it was a law. That's why I'm saying if the cops aren't doing it and they're saying you don't have to do it, there's something they know.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't everywhere. I mean, it was Calusia, they weren't caring, but that was, small town, no. But cops in New York were and I think LA were being forced to do that. And that was when they lost a lot of cops. A lot of cops started leaving. Right. And now the police force is an issue, I think, because you get all these guys who are, okay, I'll do what you tell me to do.
Right. Well, and I had a judge out here a couple weeks ago.
Is he saying the same?
And I brought it up. How can two judges look at the same thing and come to completely different conclusions? And, basically what it comes down to human nature. Yeah. Ego. I have the power to say this in court, so I'm going to say it. And he brought up, judges can be jerks. And so they have that power. And that's kind of where I go with it. If there's good cops, bad cops, right? Yeah. That's, as long as there's people, there's going to be a good person or a bad person. Yeah. So if you're enforcing it, I'm just saying if there's a cop that's enforcing it and a cop that's not enforcing it, there's obviously some sort of dilemma in, hey, I'm not doing this because it's not a law. Well, I'm going to do this because the governor told me to. And if there's just with the question of, well, it's not a law, then there's probably an argument for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just bringing up that people probably didn't even, there's enough people who didn't think that deep. And I go left or right. Yeah. Conservative or liberal, right? I mean, I think some conservatives can go too far one way and say, I don't want any law and order whatsoever, which is wrong. And then on the liberal side, you can go with, they are the only ones who know what's best for us. So they make it all up. you got to listen to everything that's being told to you.
Yeah.
With not looking it up, not even and just read. The Constitution was written for the 17th century farmer to be able to understand.
Yeah.
And if that is a thing, then you can understand it. And so if you read it and you know, hey, these are our laws and your local laws, read your local laws, read your state laws, everyone can be educated enough to know what they're being told, what laws are being put in. But if you're not paying attention, then I blame you, no matter if you're left or right.
Yeah. I guess that's getting back to like the gun group thing. It's even with the people you think you're like-minded with, it can be you're going to, debate and hit walls. And, that's kind of what happened. It could get really discouraging. So, I hear people, get out and vote, get out and, get involved. And it's like, yeah, I agree. But there also needs to be like hey, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pleasant. Like, you're doing this because you have to, not because it's like you actually will change a lot of stuff. Like, you can maybe contribute a small amount, but for the most part, it's going to be frustrating as hell because you're going to get people who are...
You're going to deal with people.
You're going to have to deal with people. Yeah, and that's going to be
frustrating.
Very, very frustrating.
But that's why I did one on not voting, but I did an episode about the there's a misconception that the participation is only voting, or it's only at some sort of federal level, and it's frustrating because locally you could do a lot, and I think people purposely don't get involved because they know that they could. I've been really surprised. I interviewed the mayor of Woodland Park over here, and going to city council meetings and finding out. I don't know how many, but they don't get paid.
City council?
The city council or the mayor. They don't get paid. It's volunteer work. So the only incentive when you're not getting paid to do something is you're trying to do some good. That's the only incentive.
Or you're trying to have status and show
True.
Or have
absolutely.
power.
Absolutely.
Power.
Because there were guys on that, there are guys on some of these city councils that they feed off of being up there in that seat.
I'm the president, so I get the final vote or whatever.
I'll play it for you.
Yeah.
City council guy made amendments to an ordinance that they had in the town, and he put his amendments up in blue and yellow highlights, right?
Yeah.
So they have it up there for everybody on display for everybody to see. These are the changes that I made, and most of the council didn't like it. So one of the council members proposed to take away the blue and yellow highlights that Robert put in, and Robert was not happy about this. Obviously it was his changes, so he didn't like it. But they go through this ordeal discussing it, arguing about it, getting upset about it. But anyway, Robert's pissed that they're gonna remove the blue and yellow highlights. Well, as they start removing it, he said he interrupts everybody. He says, "No, you're removing the words. All you said, your motion was just to remove the blue and yellow highlights."
The highlights.
So he goes into this semantics battle.
Yeah.
He said, "No, you said the blue and yellow highlights. You didn't say the words." And this guy's 60 years old.
60.
And it's like
some
child.
Yeah.
Some child, like, just frustrated.
Well, you said pick it up. You didn't say put it away.
Right. Exactly. And I got kids that do that. So it's like, so this is just one town on a small town level, but you think to yourself, where else is this happening? It's happening everywhere. And it's because I'm going back to what you're saying about getting involved.
Yeah.
It's true. They may not be getting paid, but they thrive on stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, you didn't say the words, you just said blue and yellow highlights. So you had to re-motion this.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get rid of the item. And it was
the items that are highlighted in this color.
And he sat back after the second motion to, okay, I mean to remove the items, and I'll set, and then they go through the whole ordeal again. I second it. He sits back in his seat and nods his head like, okay, now we can. Now we did the right thing.
Now I understand.
Now we can go with this. And it was, so if that's happening on such a small level, but anyway, it's whether or not you're right, whether or not they're getting paid or not, whether or not it's voluntary, people thrive on the fact that they're sitting up in a seat and someone's watching them, someone's listening to them, and small town level, local level. But I've been blown away by going to these meetings, and it's so simple, from something like a traffic light to short-term rentals that they don't want, or neighborhoods and stuff. But people in these, they're in a position of power, whether they're getting paid or not, and realizing the arguments that are happening. And the other sad part, though, too, is that this is a town of 8,000 people, and there's 50 people at this city council meeting, and it's, so I'd love to just travel and go places just to see city council meeting and just work. Again, city of 8,000. I'm focusing on this. I get it. It's just one. It's just one thing. But like, where else is this happening?
I got a story for you then on that. So there's this one. Oh God, I think it's a college organization, or is in this city, but it was a socialist or communist meeting, and they say, "Hey guys," and someone stands up and says, "We can't say 'hey guys.' That's a non-gender. We need gender neutral language, please." And then they started to clap at something, and then someone stands up and says, "That's triggering my PTSD," or whatever it is, the clapping. And so can we show jazz hands or something stupid?
Is it a comedy bit?
No,
it's
totally
real?
Serious. Totally serious. It's like a communist or socialist chapter charter. Yeah, look it up on YouTube. Oh, it's the funniest. I think there's they go through, you can watch the whole meeting, but there's the first 5 minutes is this okay, clapping is causing some emotional trauma, or not emotional trauma, it's something ridiculous, but yeah,
it's believable.
It's you get it from the San Francisco, I think it was San Francisco, it's probably California, but San Francisco Communist Party chapter meeting or something, and it was just what
how do you get anything done?
That's a lot of the times that's you get these people who are trying to stop things from getting done. It sounds like the same guy who here, it's almost like they thrive on provoking and being a thorn in a side and stopping people from actually getting anything good done.
And that's where I go, and people aren't going to like this, but I blame people like us, who don't get involved probably like they should.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that don't like that, but it's, it's just griping about it, but doing nothing about it. And there's a lot more you can do about it besides vote or even write your congressman.
Yeah.
And I think it starts locally. It starts at the lowest level. I did one on the definition of government. I say this all the time, but it's a big deal.
Yeah.
The definition of government is control over your temper and passions. Yeah. So it's you.
I remember
you are your first form of government. And if you can control that, and then family, community, church, whatever, state, but locally, the most local level you can get is yourself. But if if you're a smart person, if you can do some sort of good, and you don't, then it's your fault.
Yeah.
If you have the chance to do some sort of good. And
well, that's where, not to cut you off, the culture, it's where, we'll talk about the movie later, but there was a time when being a civil servant meant you actually wanted the responsibility, or didn't even want it, but knew you had the responsibility to better yourself and your countrymen and the laws and do things right. There was you didn't get paid for it because it was look, this is something that needs to be done. Now we've kind of lost that bit, and now we just have the people who are either, okay, I gotta go, or it's I'm gonna go so I can, You know, oh, well, you said remove the highlights, not the words. You know, you got people who love that stuff. That's majority, I think, is what politicians are these days. They just love the being in power and playing semantic games and just being a nuisance without
it's both, right? I get it. You get some sort of representative up there or somebody in there that you may have voted for and it's not going maybe the way you wanted, right? So I'm not ignorant that I'm not so ignorant that politicians aren't responsible for some things either. But it's just kind of like the education thing. I remember Dad saying this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
They've been infiltrating these things for a long time and no one's paid attention. And he blamed himself just as much as I'm blaming myself.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm paying attention. Now I'm looking things up. But I feel like the biggest issue has happened. Like, no matter if you're left or right, liberal or conservative, whatever, handle it locally.
Yeah.
Go do something locally. And I feel like more people who want to mind their own business, they just kind of want to live. So they don't want the power.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they don't feel like doing any of that. But then I feel like that's
telling other people what to do themselves. They don't want to be the ones who are like, you have to do this.
Right.
So I'm kind of in that camp where it's like, look, you just leave me alone, but we're not being left alone. So yeah, but go ahead.
Well, no, and that's to my point. If you have the ability to do some good, or at least just go up there trying to do good, you know, I feel like it's the same. When I was first becoming a dad, I was trying to read stuff or, you know, get better at it before it happened, right?
Yeah.
But there was I don't know who it was, but they made this comment that if you care at all, you're probably way ahead than most people. And I feel like that concept still applies to a lot of things in life. And one of them might be, if you care at all about your community, if you care at all about making a difference, it's not going to be, I'm going to start by running for president, or I'm going to start by trying to get rid of global warming. I don't.
Yeah, you clean your room.
Make your bed.
So I gotta ask
Jordan Peterson. Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. I gotta ask. So caring about the community, I wonder if there's more of like I always go back to our culture. Like you say, you kind of blame us for the problems because we're not maintaining. One of the things I don't think we're maintaining is culture, because there's almost this like idea of like, why should I care about this community? Because a lot of times it seems like community doesn't care about you, especially with the meeting you're talking about. But like, how could you get people to actually care a little bit more? I mean, I cared a lot because of the gun stuff. It was like, I don't want my guns, taken away. But that's just one small thing. Like I don't know, if you had a lot more, you could probably get a lot more people interested in community welfare, because that does seem to be an issue, even in small towns.
Sure.
It's an issue about caring about your community.
Right.
So I wonder how that's fixed.
I think that they even made the comment up there, we need volunteers for this. We need volunteers for that. Community outreach programs, building communities, our boards. There are city council members leaving. We need volunteers. And so sort of like I parallel it to military type of responsibilities, or even promotions, so to speak. Okay. So if good dudes leave the military, the bad dudes stay.
Yeah.
Guess who gets promoted?
And
guess who gets to be general? Guess who gets to be a senator? Guess who so I blame people who I guess blame's probably strong, but
it's a little strong.
But if you know that you can do some good and you don't do it, the burden's on the good dudes.
Yeah.
And it stinks, right? And I'm not saying that I'm that good dude. Yeah. I'm saying there are a lot of good dudes that want to mind their own business. They don't want the power. They don't want to. But when you sit back and realize this bad dude's going to take it over, maybe I should volunteer for something.
Yeah.
And the issue is, this is stuff I spoke with the mayor. It kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, if you're working, you probably don't have time to go to city council meetings.
Yeah.
So like it's a harsh thing to say when I say I blame them. But if the bad dudes are the only ones that want to volunteer, or if the jackwagons are the ones that want to volunteer and that go do it, and they're making those decisions on city council meetings or at city council meetings and board meetings in city ordinances, that the change can be local, and it should be local. It should start local. If you're just in a small community and you don't feel like doing it, just go to a meeting. And I think that the good dudes, the good people that could probably make the difference, just going to a meeting, I think, would make a difference. You're talking about anything from we need a traffic light over here or a stop sign over here, or we need the speed limit to change over here, or it was anything from that, again, like I said, to short-term rentals. So that's how I think the difference can be made. Sometimes just being aware.
Just knowing.
Knowing what's happening. I mean, this city, most cities, they post when the board meetings up. Going on, they post the meetings up.
Yeah.
And anymore, I don't think it's an excuse to and
back in the day it would have been harder to like attend.
Sure.
Finding like just seeing the bulletin board or whatever when you're riding through town, because most of the time you're at your farm or whatever. It's harder to go to those, but
I think your question is very fair, though, but I don't think a lot of people ask, what difference can I make?
Well, it's not just what difference. So the incentive for bad people to go to that stuff and to get involved is because they get, they're on a power trip. For the good people, because most good people don't want power, but they're the ones who should have it. Finding incentive for them to go is kind of a big thing, because a lot of people don't pay attention to politics. They don't pay attention to the local stuff, so they're not getting any kind of recognition. I know it sounds selfish, but like, you beat someone down enough with responsibility, and then you get people like, the highlight guy, and you are going to burn out if you're not careful. You need some kind of reinforcement, I think. Now, maybe, you might get that from, maybe your wife or your family. At least as a bachelor, like, let's say, as a bachelor getting involved with stuff, I don't have the support from home. Like, maybe I could call a brother, but otherwise, trying to get involved, you get opposition, you get your homers, your guys trying to, well, why your senator? We don't need to start this, this range up yet. You get guys like that, you will wear out pretty quickly. At least that's what I found out. I wore out quickly. Where I was like, well, like. The other 10 guys I know I talked to said they agree with me, but they're not saying anything. And then the 3 other people who back the guy I'm arguing with, they're loud and clear. And it's like, well, like, how do you keep pressing on? That's the hard part. That's probably something that needs to be talked about more too, not just getting involved, but like, okay, when you get involved, you're going to hit brick walls and you're going to have to bulldoze them over or climb over, or like, I
don't think it's possible to go through it by yourself, like what you're saying. And and that's what I mean by, on a, totally fair question. Why should I do this?
Yeah.
And the incentive it isn't necessarily like I need to get paid for this to make it worth it, but I need to see changes or hey, things are good, no changes.
Even just a pat on the back, like at least like, hey, good job for trying.
Well, yeah, but
something to keep you motivated.
I truly believe and think that if you have the light can overcome the darkness. So to be cliche, the light can overcome the darkness if you have enough light. And it's as simple as that. I think get enough good people. Hey, this is the right thing. We've thought about it. We've this wasn't made off of a rash decision.
Yeah.
There's what was that? That my phone's going off right now. It's super annoying. I thought I turned it off, but anyway, what was it? The dads that got together at the school, and they there was some bullying going on. There were some issues going on in the school, and these dads decided to get a group of dads together and just stand in the hallways. And I'm frustrated. I can't remember this, but it might come back to me. But but anyway, there were enough good dudes, good dads that said, "Hey, we're deciding to do this. Let's go do this. Let's go stand in the hallways of this school, greet kids, and maybe and a lot of it stopped." Dad used to tell a story all the time about the elephants, the teenage elephants that were running through these villages. I think it was in Africa or something like that. Did you ever hear this?
I don't remember that one.
So he would talk about these elephants were in their, like, quote unquote, the teenage years. They weren't like old elephants, but they were running through all these villages, and the villagers brought in the old
elephants,
adult elephants, and it stopped. And so you're talking about, it's super interesting, but the dads going into these hallways kind of proving this concept, like nature works kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Like if you get the teenagers being jackasses and you bring in the old
veterans,
old frustrated, like, hey,
I just want to go to sleep.
Knock this off. Like, and it, to my knowledge, at that school, it stopped. A lot of it stopped, or a lot of it slowed down.
I've noticed that working at a bar, working at the bar, Palomino Room, shout out,
Red Bluff, California.
That's right.
Carlos
Zapata's bar.
Good dude.
So there are certain nights, like karaoke night, like I was telling you earlier, average age is like 50, and you get all these old guys and some old ladies too, but the atmosphere and the dynamic is different, and there'll be young kids that come in, but it's not as like rowdy or rambunctious as like a Friday night when it's just the young kids, because there is something about having older folks around that does kind of mellow, I think, kids out a bit.
Well, and to my point about making change in your local area, if you are overwhelmed with good, I think it's easy to recognize bad. And if you're overwhelmed with old people in the bar, or I would say more mature,
yeah, because there's definitely
but I'm just
some
saying, but like, it's
ones,
not in a derogatory way, but just if like a younger person going in there and trying to, he's probably less likely to be a jackwagon when he's in there. In the same way, if you decide to help out in the community and you're like, hey, this type of no good is not going to supersede our good.
Yeah.
And if you get enough good dudes that decide to make the change locally, I can't stress that enough because the idiocy at the local level is it goes in there, and they wanted all sorts of regulations, all sorts of laws, all sorts of, I'm mad about this, therefore I want a law taking it away. And that to me it blew my mind for this small, quote unquote, conservative Republican, so to speak, town that wanted government overreach to settle everything. I've never noticed when that was going to help.
Well, that's like I was saying, that's getting people involved. Like, you have to get involved if you want to change, but you have to almost warn the people, like, look, you're almost going to run into people you think are conservative, but maybe they're not, or maybe they've got different ideas, and the people you think have your back are the ones who you're gonna have the biggest problem with. So you almost have to be prepared when you go to get involved, because it's like, I wasn't prepared for it, and then I was like, what? I thought we all agreed on guns here, and we're all trying to do something, and now there's this.
And I think, I don't know this, but ego, getting in the way,
a huge part.
And if you read, that's why I push too. Don't just read the Constitution. I mean, do it, but but read the Federalist Papers, because seeing their arguments, their back and forth dialogue, is super important to realize. Not everybody agreed, and not everybody got along, and there were relationships lost over Federalists and Anti-Federalists.
Yeah,
those who would not sign the Constitution and those who did, they busted up relationships over this stuff. And there's going to be people, well, it's not worth it to lose my friendship. So maybe there are some, that's why I think you may need to sit down and find out what's worth it and what's not. But I don't know if enough people do that. I mean, look at that movie, Cromwell, the movie Cromwell, 1970.
Richard Harris, really good actor.
Great movie. Alec Guinness.
I was gonna say, I wasn't sure you were gonna like that. I was like, here's an old 70s movie. No. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's kind of slow and all right.
No, it was brilliant. I loved it. I encourage anybody to watch it, because the government is overstepping. What was it, 1625? Is that when it was
about 1630, somewhere in that time.
So, but the point of it, this is clearly government overreach, and you're not abiding by your own laws that you made.
That the king was supposed to uphold.
The king is supposed to uphold. And so we're going to, I'm not talking about like anarchy or overthrowing governments, but it was just these men, they were
establishing
in clear
law.
Turmoil over, should we do this or not? Should we overthrow this guy or not? And not everyone, even when they were successful, there were still disagreements in the way that they were handling it. And yeah, I don't know. Just, it was such a brilliant movie.
Well, that's like even the guys who were together in the Civil War, they, like I said, they still were fighting. There was still infighting going on there, and that was probably one of the biggest problems. And that's why Cromwell, in the end, I guess, ended up booting him out and saying, "Oh, hang on, like, let me get back to what Parliament was supposed to be about."
Well, and I think that's one of those good dudes that did not want to do it, because they ask him to be king, right? And he doesn't just say no, he gets mad about it, and he's laughing.
He's laughing, and then he gets mad.
And he makes a decision to rule, but he doesn't want to. But that's where I feel like the good can overcome the bad.
It's the same thing with that Roman guy. I always forget how to pronounce his name. Like this Thessalonius or whatever the heck it is.
This is gonna be all over YouTube.
Yes, that's perfect. All right, yeah, my stuttering. But this Roman farmer guy, they were about to be invaded, and they made him dictator for like 6 months. He defeats the invaders, and he like gives it up back to the Senate, and he goes back to his farm. Like, that's part of the culture thing too. Like, a lot of guys, at least seems like back then, were willing to do that, where today you hand someone just a little bit of power. Mm-hmm. I was telling you a story about that woman I worked with in her like 60s.
The worst.
Just, we have the power, telling us like who we can like tell to work shifts and go clean up this or that. And I was just, the look in her eyes was, we have the power. And I was like, whoa, like this is a nothing retirement home job, and you're like freaking out over this. I can't imagine what it's like to, governor or something.
Right. And I think that's the other thing is I can sit here and talk about how easy it would be to be governor. I don't want to be president.
You'd age quickly.
And but I at the very least, the lowest level that you should be involved with is your community.
Your local community. Well, that's like even trying like getting more involved. So I like tried to step up and be the bar manager, and even that was like I didn't think I wanted it in the sense like I thought I could do some good. I didn't want to be there telling people what to do. Like, a lot of times I was in there cleaning up the bathrooms and doing the stuff no one wanted to do. Like, I always thought leadership was you can do what everyone else does and more. Like, more is expected of you, and it was a very thankless job, and I definitely had, I got fingers in my face and cussed off by coworkers and stuff, but still love them all. But even that, even in your job, that can get frustrating. You're getting paid for it. It's got to be hard to be mayor,
do it for free,
be cussed out for doing what you believe to be right, and then or doing what is right according to the law, and still getting still getting run down for it.
Well, and I just thought of this, but anybody listening to this is there's the skeptics are going to be like, you're comparing government leadership to working at a bar.
It's still leadership.
And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. And I'd say if you go to a city council meeting, you'll see.
Yeah.
And it's really, some of it is so childish. You won't want to go back because but anyway, I'm starting to drift, but but no, go to one. Go to a city council meeting, and you'll see.
I'm curious now
how it's not any
talking
different.
To you makes me like, I want to go see what these goofballs are doing.
Unreal.
Over
there. Look it up in Red Bluff or whatever. The next city council, no matter what it is, and just go and just sit and listen, and observe. Or what? That's what I did with my first ones. I just sat there and again learned so much.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the disservice is for people that live. Again, comparing that one town, but look up on the city page how many people live there, and the last ordinance or measure that they voted on, and see population and how many voted.
Yeah.
On the smallest local level. And you'll see what I mean when I say I blame us. I blame people for situations that they get in.
Well, I'll go back to, if you blame us, you got to blame culture, because our culture is kind of,
you don't think that we dictate culture?
We do, but that's part of it. Yeah. We're not really contributing our culture. And a lot of it, I could blame a lot of the left and Hollywood, and they're kind of tearing down what a man is and what the family is. And
one day you'll come back. We'll do conspircy theories.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Oh yeah. But like
not theories.
Not to
conspiracies.
touch. Not theories. Actual conspiracies.
Legit conspiracies.
Yeah. But they're trying to keep it within the same subject. Something like this, what you're doing, is contributing to culture, and that's even though it doesn't seem like a huge step right now, it could be. It can get there, and you're still doing something. Whereas a lot of people, they I don't know, they're not really contributing anything, or they're doing it the opposite. They're giving all their money to Disney, even though Disney is, well, we can go off on Disney, but later.
Conspiracies later.
Yeah, conspiracies later. But like, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean, though? Yeah. Getting back into like actually like contributing, or actually like getting involved isn't just, it's doing little stuff like this.
It has to start with some sort of thought, in the sense of, what can I do? What is within my power to do something, anything? On the one of the city council members' Facebook pages, he made the comment. I stalked him.
They're supposed to be stalked. That's if you're getting involved in politics.
Transparency.
Yeah.
But they made the comment on there that about people not voting, people not volunteering to coach, people not volunteering to just be involved in the community, and I agree with it, that. And I don't agree with him in some of the ordinances that he was trying to pass, but I agree with him that, and this is what I mean, if good people do it, the good will overcome the bad.
Yeah.
This is about to stop, so let me restart.
Okay. Yeah.
Before we start the next thing. Dude, we're cruising in this conversation.
Good? All right. I'm trying to keep it to
stuff I might take out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll probably end it soon.
Okay.
We're at an hour. You don't want to go too long anyway.
Yeah. Well, heck, it's just whenever the conversation kind of stops.
What's that?
It's just whenever the conversation kind of comes to a little halt.
and but and that might be, in the next 2 minutes, but I think I don't think people know. Like when I did my episode with the mayor, I had no idea she'd never done it before. She just decided to run for city council just to be on the board.
Yeah.
And then you're learning things, right? But they actually have classes for people to learn more about how they can contribute to their community and how to be mayor, how to be on the city council. So
Mayor for Dummies 101.
Right. But who knew that though?
Yeah.
And so you learn about stuff and you get
What's the lingo and the jargon too.
Like at least you said it. How to make a motion.
How to write an outline for a meeting, when to clock, like you're supposed to write down. Like I learned a lot as secretary, writing down the minutes, writing down when it starts, when something passed, when this topic was talked about.
Right.
And I wasn't even as in depth, like with the city stuff, where it's like, well, go back and look at the record. Like we didn't really even have that.
Right.
But
I mean, that's a start of learning how. That's what I mean by just go to a city council meeting and you'll start to see patterns and things that are familiar with stuff you've probably already done.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, I've done this before. I could do this. I can volunteer for this. Or what does it look like if I do volunteer for this? And, a lot of these, I feel it's harder when you have an agenda. It's really hard when you have an agenda because you're trying to
fit your agenda.
You're trying to fit what you want in there. And I'm not saying that if there's bad things going on, you need to fit your good in there, but it's gonna be hard. I feel either way.
Yeah.
But starting at the local level and learning what you can is where it starts. And I mean, look at these parents that decided to start going to school board meetings.
Yeah.
And they're starting to figure things out, and they're like,
probably the best thing about COVID and the lockdowns is parents actually started listening in on their kids' little lectures, and they're like, wait a minute, what is this critical race theory stuff? What is this? More conspiracy theory stuff. Or
no,
conspiracy
it's not.
Stuff.
It's not conspiracy theory.
Not theorist stuff.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy
it's not
stuff.
A theory.
I gotta get that.
It
in
exists.
My head. Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
So
shout out.
But yeah, there was a silver lining in the lockdowns and stuff. And I think that was one of them.
Right.
I still have to go back to kind of like the culture and the incentive and us, because there are people who still want, like, getting involved, still want to do good, and you get beat down quick. You get beat down really quick, and there's, we can go off on all the little things that are beating you down, from Hollywood to media to everything, but it's, if you really, to get people more involved, there does have to be kind of like the plan of like, okay, here's how you reinforce yourself. Here's how you keep yourself motivated. Because like I said, I got beat down quick, where it's like, okay, well, we're not getting anything done. This is almost a waste of time. I'm spending hours, trying to get outlines right, times right, going to these meetings. Like it became a drag where it's just, okay, like this is just, it's getting stupid at this point.
No, that's
so keeping yourself motivated and involved is probably the bigger challenge.
And
that might,
me, that's because you want to be consistent, and I agree. And that's something that even through all these, I had one guy out here. He made the comment, "You're assuming that people care."
Yeah.
And that is something that I take for granted. Yeah. In the same way that I take for granted that you're going to be motivated to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
To find out, to learn, what do you need to do for good to overcome?
Yeah.
And if some of it is people have to care, first off.
Yeah.
Just like that guy reminded me, and people have to stay engaged and motivated. And that's something to think about when you start something. How are we going to stay engaged the entire time?
I would say, to go off that, that's the biggest challenge. The opposition and the people trying to corrupt the system and everything, that isn't like, you can push back against that. The biggest challenge is getting people who care and then staying motivated and supported. That if you've got that, then you can overcome anything pretty much. I think, I don't know from experience, but it's the opposition is not that. I mean, like I said, you see that San Francisco Communist Party thing, the jazz hands, they're not a big a threat. We just let them be it.
That's good stuff, man. And that's the whole point of this. The Vital Expedition is strictly to learn. I'm learning with all this. And I think that what you brought up is like, that's really good to stay motivated, because I take for granted that you're going to stay motivated. I don't want to run. I don't want to be mayor.
I don't really want to do much of anything.
Grandpa was mayor. I should have.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah,
I didn't
Williams.
know that. Oh,
yeah,
dang.
He was mayor. The hat that he wore as mayor is somewhere out and about. I can't remember which one it was.
Wait, do you have it?
No, I don't think I do. But maybe I do.
Oh.
In storage somewhere.
You both had small heads.
But
you both.
The funny thing is, it's too big on me.
Oh, really?
But hey, thanks for doing this, man.
Oh,
It'll
yeah,
be a reoccurring
yeah.
guest.
Well, we're going to talk about conspiracies.
Yeah,
conspiracies.
You'll be out again.
And then I also want to probably bring up some more about culture and like really root of it. At least the difference between like bachelor and married man, and that, because that can play a huge part.
Hey, and comments are welcome too. So if you watch this video, hey, give comments and suggestions. We're all trying to figure it out.
It's a flat cap, not a fedora. I get asked that a lot.
What you're wearing?
What I'm wearing.
For the Vital Expedition, I'm Nathan Lewis, Studio Veritatis.